Hi guys, it's Alex, Forest Creative Films. So today we're going to be taking a look at the Dyson Pure Cool. I've got it here set up on the table next to a standard tower fan, a floor fan, and a standing fan. We'll take a look at some of the pros and cons of the different models, the sound that it makes, the amount of air that it actually blows around the room, and the cooling that it provides. And obviously the Dyson is also an air filter, so we can take a look at some of the features of the air filter as well. So Dyson's design can be a little bit divisive sometimes. This particular model is available in this white color. It's also available in black. It has this handy little remote as well, so if you're sitting on the couch and you want to change the airflow, you can change the direction of the airflow, because not only does it blow air towards you, but it can also turn around the fans to actually blow it against the wall to circulate air, not directly on your person. So here you can also increase the fan speed, decrease the fan speed, set in auto mode, night mode, and if you press the I button, you actually get different information about different particles currently in the air. So how it works is there's actually a filter here. If I pop it out, you can take a look at how the filter is designed. So the filter's in there. It's a carbon filter and it catches most particulates. And inside the system, it actually uses a laser when sucking through the different particles to see which particles are, for example, PM 2.5 or PM 10. So those are microscopic particles that can cause some health issues or problems for people with asthma. So if you have any issues with pollen or things like that, or particles in the air, then it's definitely a good, interesting buy. All right, so let's turn it on and then run through some of the different types of particles that the Dyson filters. So PM 2.5 is generally combustion particles, organic compounds, and metals. If I press the I button on the remote, now I can see the effect of PM 10, and usually PM 10 is things like dust, pollen, mold, etc. If we go further, we also have volatile organic compounds and nitrous oxide. As you can see, the system is currently still detecting the air and seeing if any of these particles are currently in the air. If we go a little further, it also gives us a nice view of the temperature, humidity, if the filter actually needs to be changed and how to change the filter, if Wi-Fi is connected, and the average of all the different particles mentioned before, also over a 24-hour period. So it's pretty nice. It's a very nice, sharp display. You can really see a lot of information on it. It's very clear. The display is definitely great design. It's nice to have all this information. So that information that's actually displayed on the screen there is also available in the app. The nice thing about the app is it actually gives you a rundown of the entire week and the particles, the level of the different particles throughout the week. So as you can see, for us, PM 2.5 isn't too big of an issue, which I was a little bit surprised at, considering we live on quite a busy street. But as you can see, everything is really in the green and at minimal levels. If I check PM 10, same story. Volatile organic compounds, also same story. And nitrous oxide. So you can see a spike here. Maybe it had to do with the direction that the wind was blowing off the street, because nitrous oxide generally has to do with the gases coming out of cars, especially if you live in the city. So temperature, you can also see the temperature throughout the week. Today is a very cloudy but hot and humid day. Currently the temperature, if we go to the standard settings, we can see that it's 24 degrees and 67% humidity. Let's go back into the historical data and the weekly data. And the last option after temperature is humidity. One thing that I've noticed, which is kind of interesting, is every time that the temperature goes up, the humidity actually goes down. So that was also kind of interesting to see that there's actually a correlation between the level of humidity and the temperature. So if you're really into apps and tracking data, it's definitely one of my pastimes. Lately I've been using apps for everything from exercising to recording the foods that I eat, the calories I take, things like that. For someone like me who loves data, this app is very, very cool. I have to say the layout's very good. You can see the entire history, how everything's presented. It's just very clean. At no point did I actually have the feeling that I was using an app that was just tagged onto the end of a product, but it was actually, it looks like the app was thought about during the design process from the beginning, because it flows perfectly. So I'm very happy with that. Now let's actually get to the device and some comparisons. So a lot of people, when they actually see this product and its box, they tend to think that it actually cools the air. It doesn't. Essentially, it's just a glorified fan, so it has the same ventilation effects as all the other devices you see here. It's not an air conditioning unit. We actually thought about getting an air conditioning unit at first and decided to go for the Dyson. One, because the air conditioning uses a lot of power, and I didn't want to see a big spike in our electricity bill. But also, it's nice to actually have the windows open and have some fresh air flowing through. With an air conditioning unit, you'd have to close all the windows to keep the cold inside, as to not use too much power. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be a very subjective test. I'm just going to hold a white piece of paper in front of the device, all three devices, and we'll see what effect the fan actually has, so you can get an idea of the power behind it. So currently I have it on setting number 1. And most of these devices, they have a low, medium, and high setting. To emulate that, because the Dyson has 10 different settings, we'll use 3, 7, and then 10. So right now it's on 1. I'll bump it up to 3. Should be able to see a little bit more movement. And 7. So you can see 7 is already quite good. It provides a lot of power. The great thing about the Dyson and its air multiplier technology is that it doesn't really spread the cool air around the same as some of these other fans do, but it has a very strong jet stream of air. So it does definitely have a very cooling feeling, much more akin to standing outside in the wind than having a fan blow at you. So now it's at 7, and we'll pump it up to the max setting 10. You can see a little turbulence there in the air, or for the paper as it deals with this amount of power. Yeah, so that's the Dyson, an idea of the 3 settings, a low, medium, and a high. Now let's move on to the tower fan. Okay, so this is just a standard tower fan. I think we paid like 40, 50 euros for it. We got it a couple of years ago, and I have to say I was quite impressed with it when we first got it. Considering the Dyson normally costs 599 euros here in Europe. Currently they had a deal, I think it was for 549. And then through our bank had a €100 voucher that you could get from them. So I got this thing, I picked it up for 450 euros. But generally it's around the 500 to 600 euro range. For a fan, it's way too much money. But with all the other bells and whistles on it, with the air filtering technology, if that's something you actually need for your house, then it can be a great benefit. So moving on to the tower fan. I'll set it first to number 1 while holding the paper here. As you can see, the air is not as stable as with the Dyson, so it kind of just throws the air out there. So what the system does, it has a whirling system that picks up air here on the sides and it shoots it out the front. Also similar to the Dyson, the fact that it's an elongated jet of air, but the paper definitely is flowing much more from side to side, so it's a lot less stable. I've set it's number 2. Same effects. It's throwing air in a little bit of a wider cast. And then the high setting, number 3. So as you can see, the high setting here from this device, let's just switch back to the Dyson for a second. Put the Dyson also to the highest setting. You can really see that jet stream of the Dyson, it's a much more stable column of air actually that moves towards you. The sides of the paper are curling up. There's very little instability in the air. And it's also quite a bit powerful. You can even see that jet of air from the Dyson, even though the paper is now in front of the tower fan, the jet is pulling the paper into it. So that's a standard cheapo tower fan. Now we'll move on to the floor fan. This floor fan is actually one of the first fans that we got after we had one that really fell apart. This one also has 3 settings on it, a low, medium, and high. The nice thing about this, it has 3 blades and it's quite wide. I think it was 50 centimeters or 55 centimeters or something like that. So we'll do the same test again. I'm holding here the piece of paper. We'll set it to 1. I have had some issues with this fan. I mean, there's an issue in the power box that's not really working properly. So I might have to hold down number 2 and number 3 for them to really connect. Yeah, I would compare this on setting number 1 with the tower fan on setting number 2 and the Dyson on, let's say, 3, maybe a 4. But the column of air is quite stable. The paper is not really fluttering around the same way as it did with the tower fan. Pump it up to 2. Oh, yeah, the power issue. Like if I hold it down, it should work though. It's a nice amount of air. Also very, very, obviously not as stable as a Dyson because you can see a little bit of fluttering on the paper to do with the blades, but definitely, definitely more stable than the tower fan. And if we switch to number 3, yeah, this is just some good air. I've actually got it set up here with the lights to the side because I moved the table to be able to do this test. And if I switch over to the lights, you can even see they're really moving around. Whereas that stability that comes from the Dyson, from that column of air, tends to not really move the hanging lights that much. Nice thing about this one is obviously you can also put it at different angles. You can shoot it up at the ceiling. It's quite versatile. And then finally we come to our newest fan. This is from a local store here called Hema that has a lot of household products. We picked this one up for 50 euros. I believe it's 55 watts as well, or about 55 watts. I believe that one's a bit stronger. I thought that was closer to 70. We can take a look at that later. But yeah, it's a very simple design. 3 buttons for the different power levels, low, medium, high, and an oscillation button. So let's try this one out on number 1. This actually has a 5-blade design. Oh wow, you can really feel that the air is quite a bit stronger. I guess it's got to do with the extra blades. It also feels, I don't know, it feels a little bit more, it's got a similar effect to the Dyson. It's more of a column of air rather than the larger fan that you put on the floor. This one, it wasn't so much of a column because it has the 3 blades and the blades are not that close together. It was much more of a rhythmic air, whereas this is much more of a feeling of just a constant air and a constant column. So, set it's number 2. Yeah, it's really going. And number 3. And as you can see, I am holding it vertically, but the paper is just, it's going all over the place. It wants to fly away. So, that's a quick overview of the different devices. Next, we're going to get a decibel meter out, and we'll take a look at some of the sound that these different devices create. So now for the sound test. So what I'll be doing is I'll be using the XY microphone of the H6 Zoom H6, and a decibel meter app on the iPad Pro. The microphones on the iPad Pro are actually here on the top. So it's about, let's say, 10, maybe 15, about 15 centimeters away from the Dyson. So I'll keep it 15 centimeters away from the other devices, and we'll see how the sound affects. I'm going to try and get the microphone also set up underneath the stream of air. That way it's a bit of an even comparison. So we'll try and also emulate the distance that the stream of air is from the device to get an accurate representation. All right, so if we turn on the Dyson and we put it to setting number 3, our low setting. All right, so the background noise is about 35 decibels, and with the Dyson it was hitting around 45. Now let's go up to the medium setting, 7. Seems to be hitting around 55 decibels. And now if we go to max, 10. It seems to be hovering around 60, maybe between 60 and mid-60, so around 62 or so. So as you can see here, how this app actually works, quiet is up to just under 30 decibels, I believe 28. Speech goes up to about 63. Noise up to about 100, and between 100 and 120 is the danger zone. So as you can see, this definitely is in the speech range. It is at the upper end of the speech range on number 10, so it definitely sounds loud enough to emulate speech. For example, I'm talking right now, and I'm hitting right now around that 60 range, as is the fan on its highest setting. So that's the Dyson. Let's move on to the tower fan. All right, so here on the tower fan, the opening is actually quite close to the Dyson's opening, so I'm going to leave it as is. It's a pretty subjective test after all, but it's just to give you a general idea of how these perform with noise. So once it gets back down to around 35 and it's silent, then we'll run through the different modes. Okay, let's go for number 1. Yeah, so number 1's already tapping against 50. Interesting enough, 2 is staying around 50. And the high setting is also around 50. So I guess it has something to do with the design of a tower fan, but it definitely is louder than the Dyson on its lower and mediums, on its lower setting at least. But it kind of stays around 50. There is a little bit more of a hum coming through, but generally for me, let's go one more time through it. Yeah, it doesn't sound much louder. I mean, you can hear that there's more air traveling through it, but it's not that you actually really notice a difference in the amount of sound. So, well, it's actually kind of nice to know that if I have this running at a high setting, it's actually quieter than the Dyson over there. So next we move on to the floor fan. So here at the floor fan, I've actually mounted it on a couple of books. I figured that that would provide the most accurate representation compared to the other one. I've also angled it slightly upwards to kind of keep it in line with the opening on the tower fan. So we'll run through the settings now. So 30, low 30s is background noise, number 1. I can hear that this one kind of needs a little time to get up to speed. We're hitting at just under 50. I'll go to number 2. So number 2 is kind of hitting the high 50s. It's about the same as the Dyson on full speed, but this has an even higher setting, so we'll pump it over to number 3. So it's right here on the barrier between speech and noise. So it's about 60, 65 decibels. And last but not least, the newest addition, we'll take a look at the standing fan. All right, so last we'll take a look here at the standing fan. So the standing fan has 5 blades. Let's try it at the low setting. So it's also taking a bit of time to get up to speed. And we're hitting at the low 40s. We'll try number 2. Getting 50, and then number 3. So we're hitting 55 to 60. So it's interesting. If we compare all the different fans, then the Dyson is actually one of the louder fans at the higher settings. So now that we've taken a look at the different fans and how they actually blow the air and how they sound, I think the best test to do is just to sit in front of each fan and give you my personal opinions of the differences. So for this test, I'm actually going to start with the standing fan. I'm going to work backwards towards the Dyson to give you a bit of an idea of what my personal subjective opinion is of the air that's actually hitting me. So let's start over with the standing fan. So I'll aim it straight at me. This fan actually is quite nice because you are able to aim it completely upwards. So where we have it set up is in our bedroom, and instead of blowing the air straight on us all night at a low setting while oscillating, we actually have it shooting up at the ceiling, going just above our heads. That way we're not drying out, don't wake up with a really dry mouth or anything. And it's just it keeps the air flowing in the room. Otherwise, you wake up all sweaty and it's not very nice. So I'll go through the settings. So first we'll do number 1. Let's take some time to speed up. Definitely notice when you're closer in, there's a little bit of a dead zone, obviously, for where the fan connects to the base. If I move back Yeah, so this, as with most fan blades, this definitely has a bit of a rhythm to it. Feels good. Number 2, and the high setting. Yeah, so how I would explain this is it's definitely got an oscillating feel to it. It's not a very steady flow of air. It's kind of like a thumping kind of a feeling. So kind of like a duk, 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 duk. And that's got to do with those fan blades. So if we move to number 2, the standing fan, the floor fan that actually has 3 blades in it as opposed to the 5 of the standing fan. This has also got a little bit of a bigger circumference, so it's I'm also going to take a look at the sound. So whereas the first one kind of had a very, I would say more of a white noise sound, this sounds more swishy. It's a little bit lower in timbre. It has less issues with that dead zone because the middle actually is smaller on this fan than on the other fan. That's nice, it's nice, but at low settings it doesn't really do too much for me, to be honest. So we'll just pump it straight up to high. If I can get it to lock in. Usually if I hold it for a second. Oh man, electronics. Okay, well, I'm just gonna have to hold it. Okay, so it's different. Whereas the standing fan with the 5 smaller blades, it had that little bit of a thumping feeling, like a bit of a chung 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 chung. This, the thumps were it was noticeable that it was had a little bit of a vibration to it, the air, but it was much more, how do I put it? The spaces between the thumps felt smaller. So instead of kind of feeling like a zoom, 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 it was more of like a zoom, 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 zoom. So each one kind of flowed into the next. So I think I do prefer the air coming out of the floor fan. The only issue I have, obviously, it being a floor fan, it's great for putting it in the corner of a room and blowing some air into the room. But for example, in the bedroom situation, whereas we have that standing fan, we have shooting above our heads, it's quite hard to get the same kind of effect with this one. You could have it because you could shoot it all the way from the floor upwards. But then again, that brings some negative effects, like for example, dust and things like that also get kicked up. We have 2 cats. It's summertime. They're losing quite a bit of hair. You can actually see some of the hair here on the fan blades. So this is much more, I would put it in the corner of a room, kind of just have it blow air around the room to really give a bit of a powerful flow of air throughout the room. Whereas the other one is quite nice when it's directional, the one with 5 blades. But yeah, it's directly on your face. It doesn't, because of that thumping, it doesn't feel as nice. So it's much nicer fan to have kind of offset. If I had it directly facing at me, then I would prefer to have the floor fan facing at me. For example, if I was working at my desk, kind of shooting from the corner, hitting my legs and going a little bit upwards, that would be the best way to use this, or in the corner of the room. So now if we move to the tower fan, let's put it on 1 and take a look. So even though with the paper test, we did see a bit of instability in the airflow, it doesn't have that same kind of a thump. It's more of a constant flow of air, but I do feel more and less air hitting me on different spaces. So that's that instability that we saw earlier. So I'll pump this up to the highest setting. So this, I would say, is a little bit closer to being outside with a nice breeze. It definitely has a nice feeling to it, so it feels more outdoors. I guess also because it's not coming from fan blades that are spinning around, whereas it's more of a whirling, like a constant jet of air that's hitting you. This is something, for example, I wouldn't mind having directly on my face. It feels quite natural, and I'm pretty happy with it, to be honest. Even though it's not really the most powerful of everything here, I do like this. I do like this. For example, if I'm sitting there at the computer, it's nice just to have it on the corner of the table on a low setting, and or also under the desk. It's actually the perfect one for under a desk. Turn on the oscillation, not have a constant airstream, but do get that cooling effect. So let's move across to the Dyson. Turn this on. So it's set to 6 at the moment. To be honest, I think it might be set a little high. So I will change my position. Yeah, it's nice. If I didn't have the sound there of the fan, I actually would have the feeling that I was just standing outside right now. A nice, cool, constant jet stream of air. And then we'll pop it up to 10. Okay, so what it's doing is the way the fan's cool, when the air rushes against your skin, it picks off some of that heat. So a fan isn't actually cooler air, but just from the movement of the air. It's kind of the same thing as when you have, for example, a really hot cup of tea or coffee or whatever, and you blow on the surface. What you're doing is your breath is actually picking up that heat, absorbing it, and pulling it off of the top of the cup. So this really gives me that effect. It feels much more, it definitely feels the most cooling of the three. I think if I had this on high directly at my face, I mean, it would get cold quick. And that's one of the experiences I've had over the last couple of weeks. When we've had it off to the corner and I set it to, for example, if I'm on the exercise bike, 8, 9, 10, perfect. It's great. It just pulls all the heat away. Just pulls all the heat away, and it just keeps going. So I think a lot of that effect actually has to do with this construction. So what it does is it pulls all the air here on all sides in through the filters, and it goes up through the system and analyzes everything here in the brains of the system behind the LCD, and then it pulls it up here through the sides of this tubing, and it comes out there. Actually, the other setting here to aim everything at the wall to kind of get that background air movement. If I press this, then you can also see and hear that the fans are moving direction. So now there's actually no air coming out here at the front, and there's little vents here on the side that blow it out on the side. Let's move back to the regular setting. So the feeling this really gives me that feeling of being outside. It's a constant jet of air. It's very, very, very cooling. Just holding my hand in front of it, I mean, it feels almost like there's like air-conditioned cold air coming out of this, which is quite amazing. But then again, if you're only going to be using this as a fan, it also seems like a lot of money just for moving air around the room. The main selling point of this device is not the fact that it's just a fan, but you should see it more as an air filter rather than a fan. And the fan system is kind of just like an addition just to get the air moving around, and also to be able to get more air through the filter to be able to clean it. But if you don't need an air filter function, then I think that this would be a little bit of a hard sell. One good thing is that Dyson does have a very good money-back policy, so you can try it out for 30 days, and if you think, okay, this is not for me, it's a little bit too much money, you can always send it back. It's definitely nice to get something like this in-house to see, okay, what is the quality of my air? Do I have dirty air in the house? Do I have issues with specific types of particulates? For example, the PM10 to do with the mold and things like that. It might actually be a bit of an early warning system to see if there's something else going on in the house that's not correct. So yeah, final impressions, what do I think of it? I don't know, even with the discount, 450 euros is a lot of money for a HEPA filter and a fan. Design-wise, I do like the design. So one of the major pros of this Dyson is not only that you can have the air coming at you or going towards the wall, but it's actually its ability to spin almost 365 degrees. So if I click here, you can see now I can set the oscillation off. I can set it to 45 degrees, which is what I usually use, 90 if I want a bit of a wider spread. Oh, and then we also have 180 for if you have it in the corner, you want to kind of get the room. But one of the coolest settings is actually its ability to go 350 degrees around. So in the setting, it will almost go all the way around. Considering that it has some electronics back there, the power cable, it's not a full 360 degrees. As you can see, it's turning quite well. Another thing I tend to do with fans, I tend to move them a lot. Dyson actually says you shouldn't be lifting it up from here in the middle. My experience with it, if you're careful, if you're not being messy with it, it's actually very difficult to hold it anywhere else. I mean, there's no handles or anything. So what I tend to do, just lightly lift it in the middle, place it to where I want it, put it down, and it just continues. So if I turn off the oscillation, another kind of cool thing about it is you can actually move it by hand. So I can just change it in whatever direction I want without having to even delve into the settings. So the settings I've been showing you, I've been controlling actually with the remote here that's delivered with the Dyson, but there is also a remote in the app, a digital remote. So here I can set things like airflow speed, I can change the oscillation, the timer, put in auto mode, night mode. And here I have that airflow direction option again, which is pretty cool. But one thing that I didn't see when I first got it, that I learned a couple of days later, is that if you hold down oscillation, so you can change the different types of oscillation, but I can also just change the direction of the airflow. So right now it's set to straight, and if I pull this, for example, to a 90-degree angle, there you go. You see the device move straight away. So where I've used this is, for example, I was on the exercise bike the other day, and I realized that it wasn't cooling me properly because of that jet stream. If it's slightly off of you, or you're not using, for example, 45 degrees or anything like that to kind of get a bit of a wider cast, then you don't really feel it. Now I'm sitting on the side. Let's just put it slightly off center from me. So there we go. Yeah, and right now I don't feel a thing. That jet is so straight and clear. That's one nice thing about it though. You can set it on one side of the room, put it on 10, point in your direction, and it will just go. And the nice thing, so now it's faced to the side. If I now press 45, then it will stay there to the side and start doing its 45-degree oscillation from that position. I think that's also very cool. So recently, about a month ago, I quit smoking, and one of the tools I've been helping to get me through it is actually a vaporizer with a pretty low nicotine level, but it's still nice to kind of have that feeling of being smoking something and not go straight cold turkey, let's say. So one of the cool things is that I can use this to show you what the effect is of the different sensors in the Dyson, because the particles that come out as vape smoke, as water vapor essentially, are microscopic particles, so they're very small. So they're interpreted by the Dyson as obviously being PM2.5, PM10, volatile organic compound. I think it also picks up nitrous oxide or something like that. But anyways, so what I'll do is I'll give you an overview on the little screen from the Dyson of the average quotient of all the different, let's say all the different particles combined. We can also take a look at the screen of the app and see how that updates live while doing this test. Okay, so right now I have it on the AQ setting. That's the average of all the different particles. Down there you can see PM10, volatile organic compounds, and nitrous oxide. Currently everything is good and green here in the living room. So it's everything's okay. So turn on my device. So a little bit of vape. Maybe you need a little bit more. Oh, wow. I don't know if you saw that, but that spiked insanely fast. So it's discovered PM2.5. It's extremely high levels, and you can see it's dropping again quite quickly. We cycle through some of them. PM10. Actually, it's more PM2.5. The rest is staying pretty stable. It might have already gone down. And here you can see on the app also it's showing that PM10 is what is being detected and that the air is of fair quality. So we'll try one more test. This time I'm about, let's say, about a meter away. So that's not that much particulate matter. So it's showing the background as 8 or 9. That's about correct. and what I usually get. Oh, there it goes. Oh wow, it's really spiking. I actually saw, because it's quite humid, I saw a little bit of vape juice kind of blow over this way. Oh, it's in PM 2.5 is also extremely high. But as you can see, the vape, oh, very poor. So the vape, it's water vapor. So essentially what happens is that when it's very humid out, the water vapor tends to stay a little bit longer. It's not absorbed by the atmosphere so quickly. But yeah, it's kind of cool to see the real-time feedback of this. I'm kind of curious. I'm not a smoker anymore, but I'm kind of curious to see what the effects would be for someone who, for example, smokes indoors, things like that. Yeah, so what have I learned from my test here? Well, I guess all of these fans, they all serve the same purpose. They are meant to move air around, to cool down your skin, to give a cooler feeling. And I believe that each one of these fans has a different place and a different use case. So definitely for the bedroom, also because the Dyson, you can't shoot it at an angle. You can't shoot it above your head or anything like that. So for the bedroom, this thing is useless essentially because it would just blow air under the bed. I guess it would be useful maybe to filter out the air as it's blowing air around, but there wouldn't be much cooling effect. The fan at the end, so the standing fan, the one that I can actually aim upwards and shoot just above the bed, perfect for the bedroom. I would never get another one other than that. We're actually thinking, we have a second bedroom, we're actually thinking about getting a second one this week for that bedroom as well, for when we have guests. Standing fan, for in the corner of the room, if you really want to blow a lot of air around quite quickly and you're not really worried about directional air, because of the way the blades are set up, it does have, and because it's so big, it just has a very nice wide cast. Great for just putting in the corner, or if you're working and kind of aiming in your general direction, works very well. The tower fan, because it has more of a constant jet stream of air, quite similar to the Dyson, it's nicer to have this type of air on your face, on your head. The tower fan is, because it's so light and it's so easy to move around, I mean, it's perfect to put here on the table while I'm working over there on the desk and just forget about it, just let it do its thing. So it's also something that, I guess it's more of a backup to the other three. And then obviously the Dyson, that jet of air is great. If you're really hot and you really need to cool down fast, that jet of air is definitely the most efficient in cooling of the bunch. I'm just finding it very hard to come to terms with the high price tag for what it is. Now obviously with Dyson, you're also paying a little bit for their proprietary technology. You're paying for design. I like the way that it looks. I'm not always a big fan of Dyson products because, for example, we also have a Dyson vacuum cleaner. It's a bit too colorful for my taste, but it's just fine. It's nice that with these, they realize that it's going to be out all the time. It's not going to be hanging on a wall or in a cupboard or something like that. So they've given it quite a clean design. It's definitely not metal. This is all plastic. It does a bit of a metal look, but it's a plastic construction. I like it. I like it. What I like the most is seeing the historical data, kind of seeing what the temperature in the room is and how it goes up and down throughout the day, the amount of humidity in the air, and definitely those particulate scores. It's quite interesting. It's a shame I don't know why it spiked, for example. I think it was on Tuesday, the nitrous oxide, but it does give a good idea of everything. It's also very nice to know that we actually don't have any issues with, hey Max, it's nice to know that we don't have any issues with the smoke coming down from the street. So if you look here, we live on the third floor of an apartment building, and there's a lot of cars driving up and down. We have a supermarket downstairs, so there's a lot of cars and foot traffic and delivery vehicles and things like that. So I actually thought that we would score a little bit worse on the pollution scores. But me and my wife, we also have a baby on the way, so I figure with a baby on the way, it's nice. It gives peace of mind to know that the house does not suffer from any issues with pollution or mold, or at least nothing that's detectable by the device behind me. So yeah, if you can, if you've got the money, and you don't know what to do with it, and you need a good air filter, or if you're worried about particulate matter in your home, then this thing is amazing. As a fan, it doesn't solve every use case. I think I expect a little bit more from it. I expected more because a lot of air can flow through it because of the design. So essentially what happens is the jets come out here on the side, and because they're moving through, it also pulls more air here through this cavity in the middle. It provides a good amount of air, but for something so expensive, I would have hoped it to be able to, for example, I could just put it in the corner and I would feel this cool breeze kind of everywhere. But I think my expectations might have been a little bit too high. As a pure cooling jet of air, works extremely well, but because of the lack of use cases, I think we're just going to stick with the one unit here for the living room. It's definitely, let me put it this way, is it essential? Definitely not. Then for 20% of the price, not even 10% of the price, you can get a good fan. Is it a nice to have? Yeah, most definitely, most definitely. I enjoy having it. I enjoy having all the statistics. I enjoy the feeling of that constant jet of air, much more akin to being outside than being stuck in front of a fan. And there have been points where we've actually been sitting on the couch on a warm day and we've had it pointed at us maybe on 7 or 8 or something like that. And it literally has just gotten too cold. So I had to either put on the oscillation or turn down the fan. That's an experience that I haven't had with any of the other fans. You never get this feeling of, well, essentially the name, right? Pure cool. You never get this purely cool feeling. So, yeah, I like it. I like it. Is it worth it? Not really, to be honest. Unless you need that HEPA filter, then definitely worth the purchase. So I hope this is giving you guys a little bit more information about how to stay cool this summer. So I'm going to be coming out with a couple more videos in the next couple of weeks. I recently got a new iPad Pro with all the accessories, the iPad Pro 2020 model, 12.9 inch. And I wanted to give you guys some ideas about some of the things I'm running into and the things I really like about the device. I've also got one of the stands back here, and I'm planning on purchasing a couple more because this is a great stand, but it's not very flexible. For example, if I want to use it as a second monitor next to the iMac, it'd be nice if I could set it more upright. So I've got a couple more stands coming in. We'll do a quick stand test. It's useful for anyone actually with a tablet that wants to use it more as a second computer screen, or have it set up on their desk in a way that's easy to use. So that's coming out, and yeah, for sure there'll be more devices coming through this house that I'll love to share with you guys. So yeah, please like, subscribe. Put a comment down in the comments if you have any questions about these devices, or if you have anything that you'd like me to review, please let me know. It really does help, especially considering I've just started out this channel and I plan to do a lot more reviews in the future. My goal with these reviews is to really look at these devices from a consumer standpoint. Stats are nice, but there's a lot of videos explaining the ins and outs of different statistics of different devices. For me, what's important as a consumer is what is the use case for the device? How does it work for me? How does it improve my life? So yeah, the next video will be out pretty soon, and thank you guys for watching.